This model is used when the customers do not know the exact project requirements beforehand. Once when the complete requirement of a client is obtained by the developer starts developing the actual model through a prototyping model. In this case, this technique is used only at the time of first version of software development. Hello one and all, it is Dr. Ravikumar Baibi, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In today's class, you will learn about the software prototyping techniques, that is, software engineering prototype model. In this case, you have what is the meaning of prototype model. First, let me tell you that in detail in today's session, and which are the different types of prototyping model that are developed and delivered to the client immediately as soon as the request is brought to the company. So if that is the case, prototype is defined as the process of developing a working replication of a product or system that has to be engineered. What is the meaning of this? Replica of or replication of original product. Is called prototype. What is the meaning of this prototype model? The prototype model is exactly the simulation of the working model, but it is not a working model. That gives an hands-on experience to the client as to how we can operate the software product. So it gives an information as to how we can operate the software process, that means the software product in real time. That exposure, that experience, hands-on experience is given to him in the form of a prototype model. So if that is the case, it offers a small facsimile of the end product and is used for obtaining customer feedback and desired below. That means customer feedback. So whenever there is a change needed, according to the customer requirements, the system must be developed for successful delivery of prototype model. So this feedback is called as the requirements or the modifications that is required for the customer. So it can be described as the customer comes to the development team and asks for the developed model, also called as, I will use the word developing model, which is not yet finalized. That is called as a prototype model. A prototype is developed here. Once the prototype is developed, we will give it to the testing of prototype by the customer, because the customer needs to have the hands-on experience with the prototype model, Once when he experiences the problems and difficulties with hands-on experience, then the results is given to the customer. The customer may come back to the client, may come back to the company and requests for modifications. No, this is not the requirement I have. I have one more requirement in addition to it. Kindly incorporate this requirement in the original model, so that the developer understands what is the actual requirement of a client and incorporates it in the original model based on the information gathered from the prototype model. So if that is the case, the prototyping model is one of the most popularly used software development lifecycle models, that is SDLC model. That is, prototype model is very significant, is a significant model that is helpful in software development lifecycle process. If that is the case, this model is used when the customers do not know the exact project requirements beforehand, because they do not know what is to be incorporated and what is not to be incorporated into the actual original model. So if that is the case, in order to collect the information and to give him an practical experience of the product exactly required for him, and to collect some information from him, we will deliver this prototype model. In this model, a prototype is the end product of the first developed, tested and refined per customer feedback repeatedly till a final acceptable prototype is achieved, which forms the basis for developing the final product. That means what? As I have already told you in the previous slide, that is, the modification is given to the developer. The modified version is given to the customer. The customer in turn comes across few more modifications. Then he comes back to the developer. Developer once again develops a prototype model and it gives a prototype model to the customer. The customer in turn gives few more modifications. This process is repeated until the complete requirement of a customer is met by the developer. Once when the complete requirement of a client is obtained by the developer starts developing the actual model. Starts developing the actual model. This is how it works on. If that is the case, software engineering process model, that is during the time of SDLC, that is software development life cycle, the system is partially implemented before or during the analysis phase, thereby giving the customers an opportunity to see the product early in the life cycle, so that they will get an experience to use the product, that is the software product, in the earlier stage of the development. Process. This process starts by interviewing or elicitation process, interviewing the customers and developing the incomplete eye-level paper model. The incomplete eye-level paper model as well as the elicitation process is helpful for collecting all the required information from the customer for the successful delivery of software product. So this is how it is going to be helpful for the developer as well as to the client. So if that is the case, this document is used to build an initial prototype supporting only the basic functionality as desired by the customer. That is for basic, first version of the software development. First version of the software product is developed with the help of this. So once the customer figures out the problems, the prototype is further refined to eliminate them. That is during the second and subsequent versions. Second and subsequent versions. Are used, are delivered for the development of software product. Original software product. Software product. This process continues until the user approves the prototype and finds the working model to be satisfactory. That is the subsequent versions. Until the customer is satisfied with all of the requirements according to the requirements of a customer. So there are 4 types of prototype models available. The very first type of prototype model is throwaway prototyping. The second type of prototype, first one is throwaway prototyping. Second one is evolutionary prototype model. The third type of prototype model is this one, incremental prototyping model. The fourth type of prototype model is this one. What is that? See here, extreme prototyping model. So we have all these different types of prototyping model. The first one is throwaway prototyping model. In this case, this technique is used only at the time of first version of software development, and it is thrown as soon as the prototype model and the actual working model is developed. If that is the case, this technique offers a useful method of exploring ideas and getting customers' feedback for each of them. That is during the first version. In this method, a developed prototype need not necessarily be a part of the ultimately accepted prototype. That means it need not be acceptable by the customer as an ultimate delivery of the software product. So the customer feedback helps in preventing unnecessary design faults, and hence the final prototype developed is of better quality. That means it is thrown away. That means, which is the second type of prototyping, that is evolutionary prototyping. In case of this evolutionary prototyping, the prototype developed initially is incrementally defined on the basis of customer feedback. It is until it is finally accepted. That is evolutionary prototyping indicates that is the customer feedback and the prototype model, and this feedback is given to him, that is prototype model, this is the customer model. So this kind of information is passed on. This is second version, this is third version. So we have evolutions. In the first evolution, what is the requirement of a client? in this first evolution. In the second evolution, what is the requirement of a client and how does the system is incorporated in the second version. In the third evolution, what is the modifications incorporated in the model. So it is called as a repeated refined model that gives you the ultimate information as to how the software product is to be developed. In comparison with the earlier one, that is rapid throwaway prototyping model, it offers a better approach because which saves time as well as effort. So that is why the evolutionary prototyping model is better than throwaway prototyping model. It is because developing a prototype from scratch for every iteration of the process can sometimes be very frustrating for the developers. There is no need to develop everything from the scratch. Once it is developed, we can continue on, reuse the existing prototype model and make use of it for the next and subsequent versions of that. So it doesn't make anything cumbersome or it doesn't make anything frustrating for the developers to develop any prototype model in case of evolutionary prototyping model. There is another advantage of that evolutionary approach is time and efforts are saved for the developer. So, which is the third type of prototyping model? Incremental model. What is the meaning of incremental model? As I have already told you that incremental SDLC model, that is software development life cycle, in every iteration, new features are added to it, so that ultimately the final version would be the one which is actually required by the client. So, in the same manner, incremental prototyping, the final expected product is broken into different small pieces of the prototypes and being developed individually. That is, it is broken down into different models and versions. So ultimately, the final version would be the one which is having the requirements of the complete details of a client. In the end, when the individual pieces are properly developed, then the different prototypes are collectively merged into a single product as their final version. That is, all these incremental approaches, that is new modifications incorporated into it, are going to be merged and the final version of the software will be the one which is having the complete requirement of a client. That is, the customer's requirement are incorporated in the final version, that is as a single product that is going to be developed. Then we have fourth type of prototyping model, that is extreme prototyping model. In this you will come across four phases. That is the extreme development model. In this phase, the basic prototype with all the existing static pages are presented in the HTML format. Suppose if you are asked to develop a website, then what is to be done? That is, initially the HTML pages are developed. Then the style sheet. Which are those style sheets? Cascading style sheet, CSS file, also called as cascaded style sheets, are developed. Then which is that? That is organization of these web pages in different sections. That is XML, that is extensible, markup language, is used to represent any of the web pages. So if that is the case, which is the second phase, the functional screens are made within a simulate data process using a prototype services layer. So in this layer, what is that we are going to do? That is the functional screens. Also called as GUI, graphical user interface, which simulates the original model, is given to the customer so that he experiences the real-time operation of that. Then in the final step, you will see that where all the services are implemented and associated with the final prototype model. This is how we are going to do in the final prototype model. So in this case, we have the different phases of the extreme prototyping model. That is the first phase, second phase, and third phase model. So ultimately, you are going to obtain the fully desirable, the fully desired functionality of a customer is implemented in the original product, that is the software product. So with this, I'm going to conclude this session. Kindly contact me if you have any questions with respect to the topics I have discussed, so that I will clarify all of your questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.